Okay, so I'm going to start this project from scratch today, and we're going to go ahead and build it, just the server side, and I want you to be able to type it in. So I'll leave some markers here in the video for you for the different places so you can look at the code and type it in. So this is a new project. I am going to create a Windows program in Visual C#, but it's going to be a console program, and I'm just going to call this the chat server. Why not? Okay. So this is going to create me the project using the template for a console program. So it's just going to be very simple, just a class called program and static void main. And inside the static void main is the area that we're actually going to put all of the information for that main loop. Okay, well, remember from the visual that I had up on the board, we have the server just has really one state where it's listening. So we have to set it up for listening and create the things we need. So I'm just going to put in a variable. And remember, this was the stuff that we did to start with, equal to a new TCP listener IP address.any. I want any address, and I'm just going to put it on port 888. Okay, so there's nothing special about that. Again, you see these little blue lines underneath there. You can add those usings in there anytime you want. And you can see I did a using system.net and system.net.sockets. So we got another one here. We got to have a client socket, and that's going to be equal to. In this one, I'm just setting a default value of TCP client. So I'm telling it the type. And I could have just said, TCP client socket, and probably would have been, equal to new or whatever. So we're going to have the server socket dot start. It's important we do that. Then we have got to tell the user console dot write line chat server started. And we have to have a counter, so we have a counter equal to 0, and then we do this while true. Oops. We're doing a counter plus equals 1, and then we'll do the client socket equals server socket dot accept TCP client. And at this point, this next line of code actually blocks. What that means is execution stops and it waits for somebody to connect. Okay? So we have that. Waiting there. Once in here, from here on out, somebody connected and sent us data. Okay, so from here on out we know we can do a bytes from equal to new byte. There should be an equal to new byte 16384. And we have a network stream called network stream. Why not? Equal to our client socket dot get stream. So we know that somebody has sent us something, but we've got to prepare to read it. So we have to get a buffer, then we have to get the stream, a just a variable pointing to the stream of bytes that's coming in. And then we have to read it in. So we're going to do network stream dot read, and we have our bytes from that we're going to read into. We're going to start at 0, and we're going to go all the way up to client socket dot receive buffer size. So that's going to tell us how big, how much information was there. And then we're going to actually create a string out of that stuff, because strings are much easier to manipulate. So I'm going to say data from client is equal to encoding dot ASCII, that would be ASCII2 dot get string bytes. Oh, yeah, it's bytes from. There we go. So we've got that encoding now. Now we're going to split this. Essentially, we're going to grab a piece of this, because we know data from client, and we'll see this when we write the client side, by the way. I'm just separating this with a piece of information there. Data from client dot substring of starting from 0 using data from client dot index of $. Okay. Then we're going to do something here. We're going to add something to our client list, which I haven't done yet. So I need to actually go up here to our static, to our class, and I'm going to add a public static hash table, and client list equals new. And I'm going to go back here and see if we can't pick this up right away using systems.collection. There we go. New hash table. Just a little help from IntelliSense there. All right. So we need to add something to that hash table. So we're going to say client list dot add, and here we got to do data from client, comma, and then our client socket. Okay. So what are we actually doing here? If you've never seen a hash table before, it is a list of items that you can pick out from that list based on a key. So it's just a set of key value pairs, and you can access your values by giving the hash table a key. So in this case, we're giving the hash table a key of data from client, which should be the client's name, and then we're giving the client socket as the value. So I want to be able to deal with the sockets here. So the next thing I need to do is actually broadcast. Now this is that function that we're going to write in a minute. Data from client plus joined, comma, data from client, comma, false. All right, so we don't have a broadcast yet, but we'll get it. We'll get it because we're almost done here. Now we need to tell the server that somebody actually joined, so I need to do a console dot write line open parentheses data from client plus joined chat room. Okay, and then we'll say var client equals new handle client, which we haven't described yet, and we'll say client.start client open parentheses client socket. So we're handing it the client socket. We're telling it the data from client. That should be the client's name. And we're also giving it a pointer to the client list. And I say pointer to the client list. This is actually a reference to the client list. But I'm giving it a reference to the client list so that later on when this handler receives a message from the client, it can actually access the client list and send everybody that message. So that's the public main there, the static void main, and we're going to have to put in another one. So I'm going to note the time here, 11.5 minutes, and we'll put in another one called public static void broadcast. Now I'm doing this, let me explain for a minute while I'm just typing this in why I'm using public static. Okay, this should be a string, uname, and a bool flag. I am using public static, actually most importantly I'm using static because I am not actually creating an object. If I had created an object called program, then I could call this without making it static. But because I haven't actually created an object for my main program, then I have to actually use static stuff because there is no object that exists right now. I'm actually doing this objectless as far as this side of the server side is going. And in order to do that, you actually have to make these things static so that you can use them directly. So I don't have to say when I call broadcast here that I need to use program.broadcast. Instead, all I have to do is call broadcast because I'm in the same context. I'm in the same object context. But I'm not actually calling and using a live object. I'm just using the object class, if you will. So let's go ahead and do this broadcast because this one's very simple. Excuse me. So for each dictionary entry item in the client list, let's do this stuff. Var broadcast socket is equal to that TCP client of item.value. So I'm just grabbing a variable reference to the value and I'm making it a TCP client. Now, why would I have to actually tell it that it's a TCP client? Well, I have to tell it it's a TCP client because it doesn't know what kind of object you're storing in the hash table. This is not a generic. We're not using generics. Generics would be typed. This is not. So, and you'll see generics soon enough. Network, stream, broadcast, stream equals broadcast socket dot get stream. So we grab a copy of the stream, a reference to the stream. We set our byte broadcast bytes is equal to flag question mark. In other words, if it's a flag, if the flag is set to true, then we'll do this: encoding dot ASCII dot get bytes of MSG. Otherwise, we'll just do encoding dot. Oh, we need to say uname. If the flag is true, we want to say uname plus says plus message. There we go. Otherwise, we're just going to send the whole message. ASCII dot get bytes MSG. Okay, let me explain this logic here really quick. If the flag that's been handed in is true, that means this is just a regular message coming from the user, and we're going to actually broadcast to everyone their username, the fact that they're saying the message. Otherwise, we're just going to broadcast the message itself, which will end up just being somebody joined. Okay, so you'll notice that I have up here at the top data from client. That's the person's name, joined, and that's all it has. Actually, I can put a period there, delete it if I want to. Okay, so here we've got a set of bytes. Now all we have to do is write them out. So we're going to actually write them to the stream by saying broadcast stream dot write, and here we're just going to do broadcast bytes, and we're going to say start at 0 and broadcast bytes dot length. And you might wonder why I have to actually go through all the effort to say, why don't I just write all the bytes? Why doesn't this take care of it for me? Well, I suppose you could write a subclass that actually had that, but that's not the way they do it. Cast stream dot flush. Okay. That's the second part. We actually have a broadcast. Now we've done everything we need to do now for the server side, getting a new client and sending out to everybody that a new client has joined. Now we just need to go through and write that handle client right now. So what I'm going to do is, instead of actually waiting till the end, I'm going to see if I can't build this thing right here. And sure enough, I've got everything correct. The only thing that isn't there is this handle client. Doesn't know what that is. So I'm going to go down here. I'm just going to say generate a class for handle client. And you'll notice it pops it up right over here actually. And I can save that now. The only difference that I'm going to do to this is I'm going to modify it a little bit, and I'm going to make this a public class. Public class. And I'm going to add a couple of things that the handler has to have. First of all, the handler has to have a TCP client socket. So this is the client socket. And these are private, okay? I can say private here if I want to. But they're by definition private, or by default private, I should say. And oftentimes that's what you see this stuff, this underscore here. These are private properties of the class. So we'll do client number private hash table. Now again, this hash table here, oh, it's got to have a table like that, is underscore client list. This hash table is just a reference, right? So we're going to start off by using system collections and using system.net .sockets. And eventually we'll probably have to say the other two, but So we've got these three things here. Then we have to have a public void start client, and we're going to hand in this TCP client int client socket, and I could just call this client socket. I don't know why I called it int client socket, but client socket's good enough for me. String client number. Let's be consistent here. And the last thing would be the hash table. Table client list. Now, the first thing obviously is just to set these things, right? So I'm going to say the client socket. Oh, okay, the client list. Doesn't matter what order I do these in, right? Client list underscore client number is equal to client number, and underscore client socket is equal to client socket. And we're going to have a new thread. Now I haven't actually talked about threads yet. Equal to new thread. But this is important to understand, actually. Let's see. Let's get this finished, though, first. Okay, that's everything for this actual start client. So we're setting up the values here, and I've created a new thread, and what I'm actually going to say is I want you to execute something for me. So I'm setting up the thread by telling it I want it to execute do chat. Well, I haven't written do chat yet, but that's the next thing we'll do. And then I say start this thread, and that will actually start a new thread of execution. And this thread of execution will continue by returning from this public void start client. But a new thread of execution will start, and that new thread of execution is going to be a private void, right? We don't have any birds in here. Void do chat. And it's just a regular method. It's just that I'm happen to be telling this new thread to start this new method. So what is it going to do? Well, it's going to do the bytes from is equal to a new byte 16,384. Just don't jump the gun there. I'm getting a request count equal to 0. So I just want to keep track of what people are doing here. And I'm going to say while true, as in until you crash, please do the following. And this one we're going to write that try catch stuff in there. So first thing we're going to do is try, and then we're going to catch an exception EX, and we're going to say console.writeLine ex.toString. Alright, so we've already written the error handling code even before we wrote anything else. So we're going to say the request plus equals 1. So we're assuming we've got a request and network stream. Now that request plus equals 1 doesn't have to necessarily be there. It could be later on, right? Equal to underscore client socket dot get stream and just grabbing the stream there. So there's a lot of repetition in this, and once you get the idea, it goes pretty fast. Network stream dot read bytes from comma 0 comma underscore client socket dot receive buffer size. Okay. Then we got to get our data. String data from client equals encoding dot ASCII dot get string of bytes from, and then we say data from client equals data from client dot substring of starting at 0 going up to data from client dot index of $. And then we say console dot write line. Wow, Pascal dies hard, doesn't it? Console dot write line from client and plus data from client underscore client number from client number. We got data from client. There we go. Now we actually have to call this static thing, static broadcast. And how come we can call this from here? Why does this work? Well, here you can go back here and look at this. Here is a public static void broadcast, and this can use any static variable, and we are only using static variables here, so it works. We're using the class. We're not using an instance of an object. So what are we going to broadcast? Well, we're going to do data from client, comma, underscore client number, comma, true. And then we have that catch exception, and we're done. So let's save this. Control-Shift-S, Control-Shift-B. Looks like we've got some problems here. Thread it doesn't know about, so we'll use the system.threading. Okay. Let's see what else we have. Request does not exist in the current context. Ooh, that should be request count, right? I just hit Control Space there. And let's do a build again. It says system does not, yeah, right line, didn't spell right line correctly. Okay, so just a couple of errors to fix there. And we'll save that now and build just to make sure. It says build succeeded. If we want to look at our error list, there's no warnings, no errors. That's always good. So we have this part done. So I'm going to give you a little bonus piece here, and I am going to write as part of the program an additional static function here. I'm going to do a public static void, no, public static string get string from stream. Okay, and what do I need to actually hand in here? I need to actually hand in a client socket. This would be a TCP client. Client socket. And that's all I need, I believe. I'm doing this on the fly, so we'll see how well it turns out. And we're just going to grab this stuff here, var bytes, network stream, read bytes, all of this right here. In fact, all the way down to there. And we're going to just, instead of assigning it to this, we're just going to return it. Return that. Okay? So I can replace all of this right there with a call to get string from stream, and I can just hand in the client socket. And I'll just say data, we'll just say string data from client equals that. All right, this is an example of yeah. We don't have that there. I just called this, I'm going to rename this client socket just so that I don't have to rename everything else in here. And we'll save that, and build succeeded, no errors. Good. Okay. I am refactoring this code. There's no reason why I should do this over and over and over again. You'll notice I've written this over and over and over again. So here, when I get a broadcast, I get this thing here, and I want to get the bytes, and this actually get the username says message or just message. So yeah, there's something wrong there. Okay, this one I'm just getting the bytes. I'm not actually doing anything with those bytes. So I'm not encoding, I'm just getting the bytes and then I'm rebroadcasting them. So I'm not getting a string here. That's fine. So I've taken this out and made it smaller and worked some stuff down here. So I made it into a function call. But let's go over here to handle client. And you'll notice I do the exact same thing here. Okay? Let's go back and let me look at that. Yep. I should be able to just go from here and grab all of the stuff that I need all the way down to here. Because let's double check. I do grab that. Yeah. Everything down to here I can delete. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to delete it quite yet. I'm going to do a let's see. I don't know what the shortcut is here, so I'm just going to try it. Edit, advanced, and I should be able to comment selection. Control K C for comment. And then I should be able to just say this is equal to program dot, and I'm going to say get stream, and I'm going to say underscore client socket. And I'll just kill that for the moment. We have to rename it because we didn't have it before. So string, we have to redefine it. Build succeeded, no error list. Okay, so I've made this significantly shorter too by just killing that. And now I'm going to go ahead and kill that as well. And I've made this shorter. Get the string from the stream and make our life a little bit easier. Okay, so just a recap here. In the program, we create a hash table whenever we run the program. And then we have a public static, because this is static, it'll be made when we run it. We have a client and a server sockets here. We start the server socket, we write that we've started, we initiate the counter, and while it's true, we say, okay, we're on our first one, number one. Client socket accept a TCP client. This blocks until it's ready to run. And we've got information. So as soon as we get information, we get, okay, string from client, get that string from client. Client list.add, data from client. We get a broadcast. We broadcast that information out. And we write to the console, somebody's joined this chat room. We split off a new handler to handle this particular client, and we start that client, and then we loop back and block here to accept new clients. Okay? So when we handle this client, this handler we've actually done some handling already, but in this case the socket's already open, and so we're just going to do get stream and program broadcast. So it's going to block in here on this getting more data. So actually you're going to have a bunch of stuff blocking right in here, and this may cause problems. I don't believe so, but it may cause problems. We'll see. Where we're going to do a get stream here and get the bytes. We'll block on that if we need to, and then we'll write bytes to the broadcast. Okay, that's it for this one, and I will post this online instead of the code so that you'll have it. And then I'll do the other one.